Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.
Good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? Welcome to the Power Nap Live. It is Sunday, so you know we are here with you, ready to give you a boost for this upcoming week. I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest, Dr. K. How you doing today?
I'm, I'm good. It's sunny. It's decent weather. Can't complain.
Y'all had some really good weather. I was jealous. I got back to Texas and it was like raining and all kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was such good weather in Greensboro. And so I'm hating a little bit for sure.
Oh, trust me, it'll be back to raining and probably snowing tomorrow. That's how weather is in North Carolina.
It's a roller coaster of emotion, okay?
People stay
I
sick.
love that. Not stay sick. That's wild. Well, today I wanted to talk to you so this week Dr. K and I got to see each other this week. We had a shared client today. I mean this past week, and we got the opportunity to talk with them about something that is just incredibly important to me. And one of the pieces that we talked to them about was conflict, right? Now, not to be all up in their business, but as I was flying home, I started to think about the intersection of rest and conflict. So I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about that today. We've got a couple of lenses when it comes to conflict. Our first one is through an assessment that both of us use in our consultant practices called core strengths, and I think we've talked about that a little bit before. But kind of as you think about relationship intelligence, it's important to kind of understand conflict. And
Right.
one of the first pieces of understanding conflict is really that um only one thing kind of changes the game, right? Like opposition can be fantastic. And oftentimes, as we're thinking about our relationship with rest, we can feel like there's some opposition to it. But the thing that changes conflict, I mean, that changes opposition to conflict is only one thing, one factor, and it's that it got personal,
Yeah.
right? That changes the game. And so I just wanted to kind of hear a little bit from you about like where you find the intersection of conflict and rest, and what can that look like?
Yeah. When you go from opposition to conflict and when things become personal being the thing that changes, the personal aspect is attached to your values. So when
Mm,
you feel that your values have been threatened, then that opposition becomes personal, therefore lending to conflict. So if you look at how you value rest, and if it's threatened, it's going to shift to conflict that I cannot rest, that my job doesn't allow me to rest, my family, my friends, whoever. But if you value rest in a different way, so and I think part of it is framing around how we're motivated, and each person having a blend of motives, whether it's you're motivated by people, performance, or process, right? And sometimes a combination of two or three of those. And when you understand how you're motivated, it also elicits what you value. And what you value, again, when that is threatened, then that opposition of agree to disagree moves to conflict. So for me, as someone who is motivated by performance, right? And so rest to me is an act of accomplishing something. And it doesn't always have to be the rest in terms of sleep. So, for example, I'm going to play golf today with one of my dear friends and sorority sisters. I haven't been on a golf course in I don't know how long, but I'm going because something about golf brings a sense of rest to me. And if someone or something threatens that very space from me, I'm more than likely to go in conflict with that thing. Whether
mhm,
it is, oh, it's raining outside, you can't play, right? Or you don't have the money, or we have this other thing to do, or for example, you got to read these dissertations. So anything that causes more than opposition, it becomes a personal thing, right? Because for me, it's about performance, and my rest is tied to performance. If anything goes against that, it's going to put me into conflict. And so it's really important for people to recognize and understand what they value before someone else tells you what to value. Because if
Mm.
someone tells you what the value about rest, you're going to find yourself kind of swaying back and forth. I think there's a level of conflict and opposition, but there's also a sense of trying to please people because they've told you what to value rather than you telling people what you value.
Absolutely. I mean, the to me, there's just so much about how we're motivated that also kind of lends to the way in which we rest. So you shared that, of course, you're motivated by performance, like solely performance, and that's a little different from me, who's motivated by a blend of both performance and process, right? So for me, the rest in understanding how I'm motivated in the action, the things that I'm doing, to do that. Absolutely. So to me, it's I just find it so cool how understanding the way that we are motivated also ties in to that rest piece. So
Mhm.
oftentimes when people think about conflict, or especially people that we work with, I know for sure that I work with, lots of the teams I work with are often afraid of conflict,
Yeah.
right? And so one of the things that I have to explain to them quite often is, number one, what conflict is. So we just, that was like free game we just gave you right there, okay? Conflict is only when it gets personal. That's like if Dr. K and I were going to the golf course together, right? Right now, she came out of her room, she was dressed up for the golf course because sometimes you got to hit the country club first.
Oh,
So
I'm
she
fresh. My socks and shoes, my whole attire. I'm ready.
so imagine if I was there in her living room. She came out because we were going to go to the golf course together, and immediately I said to her, hey, are you going to wear those specific shoes? Because I heard that the grass there is kind of soft. Right? She would say, oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that under advisement. She may go decide to change her shoes. Right there, what she experienced was opposition. I felt that she may need to put on different shoes. She felt that those were the right shoes. And there was nothing wrong with that. Now, rewind, right? Let's say I'm still in her living room. We're still going on the same golf trip. The minute she comes out of her room dressed with those shoes on, I go to her, you never know what to wear to the golf course, right? Like, I don't understand why you would wear those specific shoes. At that point, I made it personal, right? So understanding conflict is incredibly important for a few reasons to me when it comes to rest. The first one is, number one, understanding what's happening as you're navigating conflict. One of the things that changed the game for me was understanding that people experience three different stages of conflict, right? And in the first stage of conflict, what you're experiencing is that you're thinking about three things, right? You're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about the problem, and you're thinking about other people, right? So that's kind of your best chance when you're experiencing conflict to kind of make sure you're able to keep your relationship intact. Right. So that's a first piece. But to me, what helps me, especially when it comes to rest, is understanding what I experience in conflict, right? What's happening to me in my first stage. So for me, and then Dr. K, I'll have you share what your first stage of conflict is if you feel comfortable with that. I know you will, but I like to invite you, using your language, invite you to share your first stage of conflict. But for me, my first stage of conflict is assert. Okay, no matter what, it is assert. Now it's with a smile. It's often like kind of jokingly, but I straight up tell people what I'm not gonna do. Okay, no, what I'm not gonna do is do that. That's not what I want to eat. That's not what I want to do. I ain't going to that right now. Tons of people, of course, because the weather is good, to folks are inviting me on patios. I ain't going. That ain't what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm always there to assert, and that also to me protects my rest, right? But
Yeah.
I start to understand in situations when I'm starting to feel myself assert that I'm experiencing conflict. And
Yeah.
to me, that's one of the most it's such an important piece of protecting rest and practicing strategic rest to understand when you're in conflict.
Yes.
What do you do in your first stage of conflict?
I'm analyzing. I'm asking questions. I'm trying to understand why you ask, why you so worried about what I got going on. Or and sometimes for me, conflict also leads to a lens of there's something that I may be missing,
Mm,
and me going into conflict with someone may be wrapped around as a distraction to some folks, but maybe a blind spot that I haven't seen, right? And so
mm,
so like for example, if you take the example that you mentioned about shoes, and everybody who know me, I'm a shoe person. So I know my shoe game, even the golf shoes are intact. So, if someone says, hey, you never know which shoes, I'm like, okay, so why are you really posing that on me? What is it about my shoes? Because I already know I'm not changing my shoes, right? And so, is it that you really don't want to go golfing, or you don't want to go now? Something else you want to talk about? Like, there's a blind spot often for me in conflict that is shown up, which is
yeah.
why I'm okay going into conflict with folks, because there's something in that I can learn from it, right?
Hmm.
Because if I don't learn from it, as we know, conflict can lead to damaged relationships. And as
Yes.
someone who values relationships and the purpose God has given me, I don't want to damage relationships. So if I have to go into conflict with you in order to know how to move through this relationship, then I'll do it. And so for me, it's always it's the analysis piece. It's the asking of questions, trying to figure out, okay, what is this really about? Of why I'm going into conflict with you in this space. And so for me, I'm always looking at it from a different perspective. I think also when it comes to conflict and this idea of rest, I was watching a sermon of a church that I go to, or at least watch often here in Greensboro. And the pastor said, it is not your responsibility to change for someone else's agenda.
Mm,
And that often the things we pray for, we don't know how to handle once we get it. And
mm.
because we don't know how to handle it, we're seeking other people to change who they are to make our prayers more in a way that we can handle it. So when I think
Mm.
about rest, you pray for rest, but you're waiting for other people to change in order for you to rest appropriately. And baby, that's not how it works. So when the
Absolutely.
people around you are not shifting so that you can, rest a little bit better, then you start praying more and you get yourself into more of this wilderness. And so for me, and that leads to conflict, right? With whomever, whatever. But a lot of times that conflict is internal,
Yep.
and we choose to make it external because I mean it's easier to argue with someone else than it is for yourself.
Ooh, especially when it comes to rest. That's what we hear, right? It's constantly that we hear people when we're like, listen, you need to be practicing strategic rest. It's constant conversation around opposition that they experience to that, and then ultimately conflict for lots of people. I can't because
Yeah.
was instead of going, you know what, be in the best the how to get to the condition, right? As humans, we experience life in really two conditions: when
Mhm.
things are going well and when we're in conflict,
Yeah.
right? And the rest is really in when we're operating in our motivation value system, right? So what are we doing in order to ensure that we're able to get out of conflict and walk ourselves back? And to me, that often is by really understanding, number one, the key to rest, and understanding how to get back to when things are going well. And to
Yeah.
me, rest is a huge part of that.
Yeah. I also think, conflict is tied to purpose,
Yeah.
and your purpose. And when you know your purpose, you're not going into conflict as much as you would as someone who doesn't know their purpose. So
Mm,
if I know what I've been called to do, I know what my life is, I know how rest needs to show up in that life, I'm not entertaining you in terms of making any opposition we have, making it personal. I'm not allowing you to do that in my life. Now, folks that don't know where they're going, and it's okay because it's people like me and you that can help them, find purpose and get to where they are. There are people that don't understand their purpose or they're scared of their purpose, and so rest in itself goes against the very thing that they would do, right? Because rest
mhm.
is often tied to purpose. We talked about last Sunday, a scripture in the Bible that talks about laying your burdens down with me. God wants you to rest so that you can carry out the purpose. And so when you are unsure of what your purpose is, you let anything and everything turn opposition into conflict because everything's now personal.
Absolutely. And not just that, when you don't rest, you can't hear the next plan. Right? Like literally so much of the work that I do and that you do as a consultant is allowing people to pause, right? To be in a retreat, to take time away from the office. It was so funny because one of the things that had me giggling during our time with our client that we were just with is you ask them, how does it feel to be away from the office? Right? How does it feel? That's what you ask. And lots of them were like, well, I'm anxious because, I'm not getting a chance to, there's all these things, all these emails, all this whatever. However, when they took time to pause, right, with us to do things, they were able to get so much clarity.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, people are fighting for clarity in chaos. And that's absolutely so counterproductive. Oftentimes, the clarity that you need is in the strategic rest. Finding a moment to be able to hear the plan. If it's for you that you're hearing from God, that often comes in you pausing and resting. If it's hearing your creativity, the way for you to be innovative, however you are able to listen to yourself and get the next steps, often that does not come from battling in the chaos. It comes from pausing and taking time to strategically rest,
Yeah.
right? If you want next steps, you got to take a moment.
Yeah. I realized something about myself in this space of self awareness and resting is I've now realized why I have chosen not to rest.
Mm,
Because I find when I rest, not only do I get clarity, but God speaks to me in a way of this is what needs to happen.
mhm.
And every time what he said needs to happen is the very thing I have already said out my mouth I'm not about to do anymore. And I'm currently in that space. And so, working on a project that was not in my mind supposed to be what I was going to do, it was, hey, my coach, I have an executive coach, and my coach, one of the things he gave me to do was, spend some time with God and just find clarity. And that, to me, that's meditating, finding scripture, etc. And in this season is about Nehemiah for me, and every year it's about Nehemiah. And so
Mhm.
I really rested in it again, even after we read through it, as a means to find clarity. What was supposed to, well, I guess, it's doing what God wanted to do, but what I thought was supposed to be just a devotion for me to read to hear clarity is now turning it into a bigger project that
Mm.
it's making me quite vulnerable for the world to see. And through this, it's like, is this what rest is? Like, I like the rest, but it's the work and the vulnerability that comes with it. And that tells me in itself that maybe that's part of the reason why people shy away from rest or really make it up or, put some makeup on it and say it's rest when it's not, because true rest, strategic rest, brings out vulnerability that you have never felt before. And it will not only
Absolutely.
change the game, but it changes you and everyone around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. I think about like even when, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a historian, right? So
Me
I'm just
either.
gonna imagine. Imagine what it's like in war. And every day, like I try to make sure that my days do not feel like war. Okay. Like that is my goal, is to look for avenues to experience strategic rest. Even in traveling for work, I looked for any pocket of time to be able to enjoy something that would bring me rest. If it was like, get a little manicure, whatever the case is, in off time, I'm always looking for those spaces, but it's usually because it gives me the ability to be able to rest, right? But just like you talked about, the vulnerability around rest, that you're not able to be on high alert, right? Like, imagine that you're in the middle of war, but that also meant that there had to be time to rest. But even in that, there were some people who weren't able to, right? They had to be looking out, because when you're resting, that is when you can be the most vulnerable.
Right.
So, how are you also setting up or creating relationships with people that when you are resting, they're looking out for your best interest, whether
Oh,
that's at work, right? That could be at work. Are you the kind of boss that when you're not there, things can still go? So you're not
yeah.
having to think about it when you're gone. Are you the kind of person in your family? Have you connected yourself to the kind of partner that when you are not in your home, things are still okay? So that if you step away, you're able to not have to think about what's going on in there.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of folks need to think about, right? If you're the only parent that can parent, are what's going on in that situation? But in so many different spaces, have you surrounded yourself with people that will also help protect you as you go off to experience strategic rest?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah. One of the things that has shown up in this devotion space that I'm in is when God has anointed you and appointed you with assignment,
Mm,
it's often very natural that you feel like you have to protect it, you have to guard it, and only you can do it. And what God has shown me in many years of my life, but even more so in this journey, is that, Kelly, I didn't anoint and appoint you for an assignment for you to protect the vision. There are people out here that I've appointed to you to protect you and your vision because of what
mhm,
it is. But I've built relationships as though I had to do it. And because of that, I've casted people out of my life that God sent to guard the vision He gave me. And when I tell you that was a hard pill to swallow at this grown age of 39, knowing that, oh my gosh, the years that I have led up to this point in my life, it's because of the choices I've made, thinking that people wouldn't understand the gift that God gave me because it's different than what they read in the Bible, or that it's different from how other people have used the gift that may be similar.
mhm,
39 years. And to now be in a space and hear God and say, but it was all purposeful in those 39 years to get you to this point, that because of the vision I gave you, it's big, that you alone cannot guard it or protect it. And I'm sending people strategically to help guard that. And so for that, I'm thankful for the people that I have recognized to be that. Because there are moments when I'm at home, I'm resting, I'm not doing anything, and people are asking for me out in the world. And I have foot soldiers, as they say, or whatever you want to call them. And the word said, no, she good. She at home resting, protecting me, and I don't even know it.
mm.
So I thank them publicly for protecting the anointing God has given me, even when I didn't know they were sent to do that, to allow me to rest, so that when I do go out, I'm walking fully in purpose.
One thing that I heard you say that is so wild, because it's something that my pastor was literally preaching about the other day, and that stuck with me all week, was choices, right? That sometimes, not sometimes, everything is a choice. right? And I know that can feel like there is no choice. Some situations can feel absolutely impossible, right? But in that, there's a phrase that you always have people say that always makes me think about choices. Will you share that? Because I want people to understand it when it comes to rest, right? Like specifically, I'm saying when it comes to rest, you need to be asking yourself this phrase that Dr. K is about to say.
Is it the every experience I'm having is what I'm creating? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pick that up in coaching. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Going through a coaching program, and that was one of the ownership statements that was provided. And it's something we probably say often, but not in those exact words. But we're creating the experiences that we want, whether we believe it or not, good, bad, and indifferent. And if we want different experiences, we need to create different experiences.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
we create our experiences. And I know people will go like, "Oh, but what about what about, right?" And I'm not going to say about the other things. I'm going to say right now specifically about risk. I'm going to look in the camera and say that for you, the experiences that you're creating around yourself, or the thought processes that you are choosing for yourself around risk, are ones that you are choosing.
Mm-hmm.
It's ones that you're choosing. So are you going to choose something different? And when I started to choose different things, right? One of the hardest things I had to choose was to leave a full-time job when I knew my check was gonna hit every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little earlier, okay, than that every 2 weeks. I had to make that choice. But now, even just in the last few months, to see the way that my life has changed in such a positive way, right? Being able to decide for myself what I'm going to dedicate time and energy to, seeing clients literally be changed through small things that I'm saying to them through the work that we're doing. Man, it made me go, why didn't I make this choice earlier? Right?
Because
But
of
it
the
was
outside
truly because
noise.
of the outside noise, right? Because of should I, right? Like asking myself that question so much around what other people were thinking. And then ironically, when you make a choice that frees yourself, other
Yeah.
people will see it and wish that they were doing the same thing as you.
Yeah. And sometimes freeing your ooh, ooh, ah, ooh. Mm. Sometimes freeing yourself reminds people just how much bondage they're in.
My goodness. That's it right there. That's it right there.
And people are experiencing you and identify, well, people, and I've said this often, people mix up you identifying me versus you experiencing me.
Mm,
And because your freedom reinforces the bondage that people are in, they've
mhm.
replaced your identity, who you are, with how they're experiencing you.
Absolutely.
And it frustrates them.
Absolutely. Have you ever had someone who just doesn't like you? And oftentimes I have to tell people that it's not that they don't like you, it's that they don't like them. They don't like what you bring to a space. Your liberty and freedom can sometimes annoy someone so badly, and it's because they want to experience it.
Mhm.
But they're making choices that are not allowing them to be able to experience it,
Yeah.
right?
Because, I mean,
My goodness.
experiences require you to move in different environments.
They do.
To shift things, right?
Yep.
If you basketball, it's an experience if you're playing it. It's an experience if you're playing against someone. It's a different experience if you're playing outside versus inside. It's a different experience if you are playing with NBA, WNBA stars versus, someone down the street. Every experience requires new environment.
Mhm.
And because new environments sometimes put people, very cautious of new environments, they don't experience things.
Absolutely. And so, don't you want to experience strategic rest? We are telling you on the other side of rest is the idea that you've been asking for. On the other side of rest is new experiences. On the other side of rest is you literally making a choice to actively and intentionally become the person that you want to be or that you're called to be. Because that's even deeper than that. When I
Mhm.
made choices around rest, I'm even more so closer to the person that I'm called to be. And that puts me in the spaces that I'm called to be. It puts me in front of people who need to hear what I'm saying in order for them to be able to be who they are called to be.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's vulnerability in that, but there's also so much power in pausing, so
Mhm.
much power in that pause.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it, but it's already 30 minutes, man. Whoo, that one today, that had me shook a little bit. Okay.
Listen,
That had me shaking the table.
if my rest stirs something in you, I hope that getting a ticket to the Strategic Rest Summit shakes something in you.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's all I got.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna go
For
play
those
golf.
who don't know, again, look, I can't even pretend to be athletic enough to know what happens in golf. All I know is the little ball is there. And the only piece I like about it is back in the country club. Okay. I do like the golf carts, but that's the only piece. But listen, if you have not yet gotten your ticket to the Strategic Rest Summit, we will be in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th. Having a time, okay? If you think you listen to this and you're like, okay, I'm ready for whatever, come have a powerful experience with us as we focus our full day on making sure we understand the power of strategic rest with the two of us.
Mhm.
So anyway, you guys, we will we'll see you again next Sunday. That's all I can say today. I just want to hang up the phone and go on about my business. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I hope that you guys make good decisions this week and practice strategic rest. We'll see you back here next Sunday, same time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.
Yeah.
Join us for an immersive experience that redefines leadership through the lens of strategic rest in Greensboro, North Carolina on June 7th, 2025. We'll see you there.